Wow, this is what a great turnout, and that's for our luncheon, for the Hunger Summit. Governor Kim Reynolds, thank you so much for being here today. Barbara Grassley, so wonderful. Please say hello to the Senator for us, and we're thinking of him. Attorney General Tom Miller is here. Attorney General. Auditor Mary Moisman is here. Always like when you come and, our books are good. So that's Secretary Mike Naig and Deputy Secretary Julie Kenny here. Thank you. Fields are too wet to be out doing anything. So, and Director San Wong here. We're so pleased to have Senator Craig Johnson and Senator Matt McCoy here, both parties side by side. That's the spirit of the Hunger Summit, Iowa Shares. Yeah. Bishop Pates is here, Rabbi David Kaufman, Reverend Jonathan Strickland. Thank you all for being here. And I know I wrote to the chairs of both political parties. Jeff Kaufman said he was busy. I don't know, maybe something about Newt Gingrich being in town. But he said, I'm sending somebody, and Troy Price from the Democratic Party here. Oh, they're right here. So thank you so much for being here in this spirit of bipartisanship. Hunger brings Iowans together across all differences. And so I want to, we'll get right to things. We had great panels this morning on food recovery, the economics of SNAP. I provided some background about the Cambodian genocide so that everyone would understand that in 1979, who we were helping, why they had suffered. We'll talk more about that, but it was the worst genocidal mass murdering organization of the second half of the 20th century, the Khmer Rouge, and it was rushing aid to the victims that Iowa Shares was all about. And then Dr. James Smith and the Aegis Trust had a marvelous panel about preventing genocide and how it's linked to hunger and malnutrition. Madeline Goebel's here, and Madeline, thank you again for your great work and filling the room. Way to go, Madeline. And we're so pleased to have everybody here and for this event. But one of the reasons we're able to do this is because we have a wonderful sponsor, wonderful relationship with the Iowa Farm Bureau and Farm Bureau Financial Services. And I'm so pleased that Craig Hill is here, but I want to tell you something that I found out. Just a minute, Craig, hold on. And it's a good thing. I'm going to say a good thing, I promise. But I found out that the Farm Bureau has, back probably over the last 10 or so years, you've been associated with the Hunger Summit and the Hunger Luncheon. The Farm Bureau has donated over $250,000 to food banks in Iowa. So with that, please welcome Craig Hill.
Thank you, Ambassador Quinn, and hunger does bring people together. But farmers are, and always have been, unique in all cultures, and because of what we do. We find beauty in growing things. America's founding fathers said that America and farming is inseparable. And consequently, America has been tremendously bountiful in our production, and precisely true for Iowa. In Iowa, on a per square mile basis, we produce more food production than any other state in the nation. And farmers like myself, we cultivate the soil, we plant seeds, we nurture our animals each and every day, and when practical, we work with Mother Nature and we wrestle with her and sometimes defeat her when required. But however, much more needs to be done. And because we live the Borlaug legacy, it is essential that food security never be threatened. Regardless of our age, our income, our zip code, our nationality, other issues beyond production can place food security in peril, and those concerns need to be addressed and solved. So today, the Hunger Summit provides us with the opportunity to assemble, to discuss, to have conversations, to share ideas, and focus on that path toward progress when no one feels hunger. All people, all over the world, without exception, want their families to enjoy healthy, nutritious, and affordable and abundant food. Many champions are here with us today. They've been on the program this morning. They'll be on the program this afternoon. Many champions will be yet to be introduced. It's up to us to work together. And that is why the Iowa Farm Bureau and Farm Bureau Financial Services are today's sponsor and have been your sponsor since 2007. All things are built on a foundation of food. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig, on that. So I'm so pleased, Governor Reynolds, you could be here today because we know Governor Reynolds is a great advocate of STEM, and we have a member of our staff who's on the STEM Advisory Council, and wherever she goes, she talks about STEM. But people like Simon Estes and others will come up to you, and he comes up to me when I talk about STEM, says, you need to have the arts involved, and we need to put an A in STEM on this. So today we're going to do that. And if I could only pick up, so this is our Borlaug Day poster. There's one for everybody here who's at the Hunger Summit. You can take one away. This is a scene from a wonderful painting by Gary Kelly from Cedar Falls, hangs over in the World Food Prize Hall of Laureates in the Iowa Gallery. And we've been doing this now for several, as long as I think we've been doing this, probably 15, 16 years having a Borlaug Day poster. And we're having trouble coming up with an artwork. So we are going to, and I'm announcing now, we are going to have a contest of Iowa high school students. So we know we're getting the high school students who are doing the science, doing ag, you're an FFA. We want the artists and the musicians. So we're going to have a contest. Kelsey Terrell, where's Kelsey? Is here, director of our Iowa Youth Institute. And she'll be publishing the details. We want to have Iowa high school students doing artwork, submitting them, and one of them will be on this poster next year at the Iowa Hunger Summit. So with that, I want to introduce the governor of Iowa, a great friend of the World Food Prize, has been at the Iowa Hunger Summit every year that she's been in office, and here in the great bipartisan tradition. And we're so pleased that she's here with us today and able to come up and give some words of welcome. Governor Kim Reynolds. All right? Yes.
Well, thank you, Ambassador. And I always like to say when we say STEAM, the A actually buys me two things. It buys me arts and agriculture. So I'm all about it. I think it works for Iowa very darn well. You know, it's quite remarkable that today at the 12th Iowa Hunger Summit, two of Iowa's greatest humanitarian legacies come together. That of the late Nobel Peace Prize laureate and World Food Prize founder, Dr. Norman Borlaug, and former Governor Robert Ray, who passed away this summer. In some ways, these two men were quite different. One was raised on a small family farm outside of Cresco in Howard County, who became a plant scientist. The other, a native of Des Moines, who became an attorney, drawn to politics in the halls of the state capitol. Norman Borlaug would breed crops in the remote farm fields of Mexico, using his degree in STEM, while Bob Ray cultivated votes across all 99 counties in Iowa by demonstrating his personal integrity and leadership during some very challenging times. But despite those differences, their careers had amazing similarities in their concern for feeding hungry people wherever they encountered them. Borlaug developed a miracle wheat, which he took to India and Pakistan, where both countries faced mass famine and starvation. Governor Ray welcomed the Thai Dam from Laos, rescued the boat people refugees, and confronted incredible suffering among the victims of the Cambodian genocide, which led him to create the Iowa Shares campaign that is being honored today. Their two legacies came together in 2007 when the first Iowa Hunger Summit was held. There's a wonderful photo from that day which shows Dr. Borlaug surrounded by 4 living Iowa governors, 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, who were serving as honorary co-chairs of this event. It was an incredible bipartisan moment. Just as Iowa Shares was a great bipartisan effort that reached across political divisions to help suffering people, it seems most appropriate today that we have this bipartisan opportunity to recall those fundamental Iowa characteristics that unite us: ending hunger and promoting food security for all. In that spirit, I want to extend a special greeting to legislators and officials from both political parties who are here. And I want to express my great appreciation to Ambassador Quinn, Madeleine Gobal, and the team at the World Food Prize for organizing this event for the past 12 years. Also, a special thank you to Craig Hill and the Iowa Farm Bureau Federation, Jim Brannon of Farm Bureau Financial Services for their generous sponsorship. To the individuals and institutions being honored with the Governor Robert D. Ray Iowa Shares Humanitarian Award, you have my utmost heartfelt admiration for what you have accomplished in 39 years ago. Under Governor Ray's extraordinary leadership, you wrote a new chapter in our state's great humanitarian heritage, in which Iowa and so many Iowans played a vital role in saving the lives of the victims of the Cambodian genocide, a legacy of which we can all be proud. I also want to express a warm welcome to Dr. James Smith, founder and president of Aegis Trust, and the members of your team for traveling here from England and Africa. Thank you for sharing your experiences in confronting the genocide in Rwanda and your work to prevent further genocide in other countries. I'm pleased that Beth Crookham of Oskaloosa and Dr. Yogi Shah of Des Moines are providing an Iowa connection to your organization. It's important that the Hunger Summit also features panels in reducing food waste, increasing food security, as well as finding ways to better facilitate SNAP programs in our communities. I look forward to hearing about the results of those exchanges and hope you will share them with legislators and executive branch members. While the meal at the Iowa Hunger Summit Luncheon is usually limited in size, the food for thought available throughout the day seems virtually unlimited. In closing, I want to give a special shout out to all of the students in the room who are here from across the state. You and your teachers are to be commended for focusing on the plight of hunger and food insecure people, both at home and abroad. Tomorrow is October 16th, World Food Day around the globe. And in that photo of him with the 4 governors from the first Hunger Summit, Norman Borlaug was holding a gubernatorial proclamation which designated October 16th as Dr. Norman E. Borlaug and World Food Prize Day in Iowa. So in keeping with that fine tradition, it's my honor and privilege as Governor of Iowa to issue this proclamation, a proclamation that officially makes tomorrow a special day of recognition and reflection, not only about Dr. Borlaug's achievements, but also about our state's exceptional agricultural and humanitarian heritage. October 16th is a day for special pride in being an Iowan, and it's a day to ask yourself, what role can I play to help end hunger? In that way, we will all truly be carrying forward Dr. Norman Borlaug's and Governor Robert Ray's great legacies. Thank you.
Oh, that was wonderful. No, I'm just good. Is that right? You just stay. Yes, and that. So, Governor, thank you so much for those wonderful and inspiring remarks. I'd like to present the first Norman Borlaug World Food Prize Day poster for 2018, along with the announcement of our contest and so that you can have it to hang wherever is appropriate, but have it as a token of our appreciation for all you have done to promote STEM and STEAM among Iowa students.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yes.
Do I say something or just
Yeah. Do you want to say something about leaving?
I have to apologize. I have another commitment, but I wanted to thank you all for being here and helping really in the fight of food security. So thank you again for the opportunity to address you for a few moments. Thank you. Have a great lunch.
Yes. Well, the governor mentioned lunch, so let me tell you about lunch before you get to eat it. And hopefully this is the menu coming up. There it is. So I had to have a lot of training to say tuna puttanesca. Did I get it close? Am I close? All right. Yeah. Or white bean stew with smoked turkey. So here's the thing. I came here to the hotel, got together with the chef, actually the sous chef, Candace, and said, if you're on SNAP for a person, you got $1.34. That's how much money there is to buy food for your meal under SNAP benefits. So I want you to make a dish for us for $1.34 with the ingredients. And so she did that. You'll be the judge of how it is. Of course, it costs a little bit more on our bill having it served at the Marriott, but that's, yeah, but you know, that's fair here. And along with it, comes up Double Up Food Bucks Iowa Succotash. We were very pleased. The World Food Prize put money in to start the Double Up Food Bucks program in Iowa. It's where you go out to farmers market. If you've got SNAP benefits, you get a coupon that says you get twice as much, or here. And then the Iowa Egg Council provided us with eggs. They're there. Now, I tried real hard. And I said, you know, why don't we have a bowl of ground up insects on the table, because they're full of protein, right? When you hear President Wendy Winterstein, the first thing she talks about is how they're experimenting with high protein insects. And I don't know, you know, Ms. Grassley, I don't know, you know, my staff members said, what, are you crazy, you know? I thought I could get away with it, but I don't think there are any insects on your table. So I'm sorry to disappoint you, and that. But I think you're going to find it's an interesting meal, and I'll be interested in hearing your reactions. Now I have one last bit of business, because one of the honorees has to run to the airport and leave town, but she was so good to come here, and I want her to have her award, and that is Roxanne Conlon. So, Roxanne, come up here, please. So I just want everybody to understand that 1979, Governor Ray came back, and there was his pictures and this, but this was a big political time in Iowa. And Roxanne Conlon was a leading Democratic Party politician. She would be the nominee for governor. She was the United States Attorney. And she stepped forward across that political division and said, I'm going to be part of Iowa Shares. I want everyone to see that. She always says to me, I don't know what I did. I said, I'll tell you what you did. You were that symbol, that manifestation of how there are things more important than politics, and feeding and saving the lives of suffering people was one of them. So that's why you are having this award. Have a safe trip.
Thank you.
And thank you for all that you did to make Iowa Shares so successful.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. food should be coming, and before you know it, I'll be back up here doing more and that, but enjoy your lunch. There's no dessert, so yeah, my wife just said, no dessert? What? So I want to find out now, how you like the meals. Tuna, let's hear it for the tuna puttanesca. Okay, and for the white bean smoked turkey. All right, so, okay, Madeline, it worked, so that's it. So, but it's a great lesson. So we're going to start the program, and I want to start it so you hear somebody else's voice.
Have you ever stood in a small, muddy spot about 2 hours while 5 people died around you? I did recently at the Cambodian border camp of Sakeo.
And you see those images, and even though Governor Ray just left us, his voice still resonates from that moment. Here's what he and Mrs. Ray and I saw, that image, when we arrived there in October 1979. This was a camp of 30,000 people who had just escaped Cambodia, victims of the Cambodian genocide. And they stumbled out and were laying strewn across this open field, like the student body of Iowa State, as I said this morning, starved, emaciated. You see these other images here of them as we walked about, seeing people with only one leg. Here, a makeshift hospital with medical people who had rushed out from Bangkok, trying desperately to help them. Governor Ray took those pictures. And we flew back here and came back to Iowa, and there were reports about this. And when we landed, journalists came to the airport. And one of them, David Yepsen, who's sitting here, came up and was interviewing the governor. So David's here, governor's here, I'm standing here. My wife, Lei Sun, our 3-year-old son, who's now 42, there. And David's asking him, and the governor's describing this. And David Yepsen, being great reporter that he was, said to the governor, "You have any pictures? You have any images?" And the governor had in a bag there and pulled out a handful. I know if you're young, you don't know what this is, but yellow rolls of undeveloped film. And he said, here I have them, but it's not developed. And then David Yepsen asked the question that made all the difference. He said, "Can we have it? Can we have them?" So here's a moment between a politician running for office and a journalist who says, "Can I have your film?" And it's a startling thing, and the governor hesitated for a second and thought about it and handed the film to David. A moment that reflected, I think, the respect that was felt between the governor, the political leader, newspaper journalists, who would be fair, but could be given to writing critical things as well. And he took the film back to the Register, developed overnight, pulled the front page on the paper, had to call the editor, Michael Gartner, to do that. And the next day on the front page of the Register, here's what everybody read. And it sent this shot of electricity across the state. Because not only was this picture of this hopeless, starving, emaciated woman huddled on the ground, trying to stay dry. But there were other images inside. And it set everyone talking about it and what had happened. And a few days later, I was with Michael Gartner, who was the president and editor-in-chief. And he said to me, I don't know what you're going to do, but to do something, I'll be prepared to put the editorial pages of my newspapers, the Register and the Tribune, behind whatever you come up with. And then a group of 3 religious leaders came to the governor's office, called on him, Bishop Maurice Dingman, Rabbi Jay Goldberg, and the Reverend Fred Strickland. And they had all been together 3 weeks before at Living History Farm with Pope John Paul II. And they had led the interfaith service. And they came from that, where the Pope had said, you're the stewards of the earth, preserve our resources, and use them to feed the millions and millions of who are hungry in the world. So here was this moment that the Pope had spoken about, this opportunity. And they said, we sat in the governor's formal office, and they said, Governor, you know, you're our governor. We don't know what we can do, but we will be with you. And in whatever it is you can come up with. So they left, and the governor turned to Nikki Schissel and me, the staff, and said, well, what are we going to do? So, you know, it's that moment when you're on the governor's staff, you say, oh, gee. So, you know, as David Oman knows, who was in the governor's staff, and Ed Redfern, who's here, and so I went home that night, and then I woke up about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I said, Iowa shares, and wrote it down. And next morning I came back and said, what if we had Iowa shares? Iowa sends help, aid refugees, and end starvation. So governor thought that was pretty good. And what could we do? So I talked to Michael Gartner, and they prepared at the Register, Gil Cranberg did the graphics, came up with a coupon that would be on the paper in the editorial page. And we were going to have a press conference on Wednesday morning before Thanksgiving to announce it. And then on Tuesday at noon, I think David Oman got the call saying, Dave Elbert and Tom Witoski from the Tribune have scooped the story, and they're going to publish it in the afternoon and undercut our press release. So I called Michael Gartner and said, Michael, this is terrible. The guys, you know, Elbert and Witoski have got the story, and they're going to publish it. And he, of course, gave me a lesson in newspaper, said, you know, editorial page is one thing, but I don't do anything ever to manipulate the news. So the Tribune went ahead. Next morning, we had our press conference, and we launched the campaign. And then, but to get money, you had to have a 501c3 nonprofit, and you had to have a board of directors. So we called Roxanne Conlon. She came. A. Arthur Davis, leading figure of the Democratic Party, came over, brought Bruce Campbell from his law firm. They set the record. You should have someplace at the Davis law firm, something that says fastest ever approval of a 501c3 in history. Sheldon Rabinowitz came to keep track of the money for us. Michael Gartner, Bishop Dingman, Rabbi Goldberg were all on the board. So here, meeting in the governor's office, are the 3 elements of our society that the Constitution is structured to keep from ever coordinating together. The press, religious leaders, and the government, all together, not only, you know, working together, but legally in a structure together, raising money. So we launched the campaign, and then shortly thereafter, a very bright young guy who was the program director at Iowa Public Television named Dan Miller got together with Mary Jane Odell, and this happened.
Good evening. I'm Mary Jane Odell. Because of the tragedy of genocidal proportions in Cambodia, IPBN is presenting a 30-minute report on Cambodia, what Iowans need to know. Recently, 3 Iowans visited refugee camps set up for Cambodians. They are Governor Robert D. Ray, Mrs. Robert Ray, and Kenneth Quinn, who is an administrative assistant to the governor and a specialist in East Asian affairs with the United States State Department.
Consequently, we have now announced what we call Iowa Shares. And that means that we're going to send help to aid the refugees and end starvation. It made me realize that we have to do what we can, in whatever way we can, to help them stay alive. Mm-hmm. And from then on, it's up to us, not only us in Iowa and this country, but the world, to find a way to give them an opportunity. And I don't know what greater calling there could be than to save human lives. There is an opportunity to literally save people's lives. I've said before, and I would repeat it here, it isn't a question where these people will live. It's a question if they will live.
And then, and so this spread more, and newspapers across the state picked it up, and one of the leading editors of small town newspaper picked it up, the Jefferson Bee, Rick Moraine is here, front page story about people suffering in Cambodia. And then we reached out to find individuals in various other cities to be our advocate. And here representing them, Sister Carolyn Farrell is there. So Sister Carolyn was a BVM nun, and she was also the mayor of Dubuque. So Attorney General Miller and I are from Dubuque. We were growing up and didn't think, this, but she was a real political revolutionary. And many just like her, all faiths were having special services, special collections, special announcements in their churches, in their synagogues, and then in schools. It's amazing what would happen. The schools would spontaneously start collections. One of the Governor Ray's school, what was this? Was Callahan? Yeah, Callahan. Yeah, and so the students there brought in money, and the teachers had collected money. The students brought more money than the teachers, so the teachers had to go back and get more, not beyond, and this would start arriving in our office. And a young 9-year-old sent all his Christmas money for Iowa Shares. And a woman sent her wedding rings. I remember Nikki Schissel brought in, said, here, this woman's wedding rings. She wrote a note saying, I don't have any money, but we have to do something for the Cambodians. Sell my wedding rings and use the money for that. So we sent her wedding rings back, of course, to her. But it's an example of that. So by the middle of December, just in a few weeks, we had like $150,000, $160,000. So what are we going to do? So I start making calls. Isn't it so interesting? Everybody takes your call when you say I have $160,000. And I'm calling traditional relief agencies, and I'd say, look, want to rush the money to Cambodia? Only 2 conditions. It's got to all go there, and it all has to go there. You can't take any administrative fees. So I was surprised and learned a lesson. So many of them said, yeah, well, we're happy to take your money, and some of it will go there. We have programs, but we have to have our, we want to be straight with you. We have to take our fee. Except one person, Monsignor Robert Charlebois from Catholic Relief Services in Bangkok. And I'm on the phone with him, and talking to somebody in Bangkok in 1979 was itself a big deal. And he's just talking my language. Oh yes, I know where they are. I've been out there. No problem. We'll get the trucks. Sure, all the money. We're not going to take anything for this. we'll go buy the medicine. I said, well, how do I'll rush the money to you. No, don't worry. We know you're good for it. I'll go out, I'll use my money. And so all of a sudden, now a caravan of food and medicine is going to be on its way to the Cambodian border. And so the Des Moines Register, being enterprising, wants to have a reporter there. So somebody goes down to the news section, said, all right, we need somebody to go. And the question was, who has a passport? So what a different age it was. The only reporter with a passport was William Simbro, the religion reporter. And Michael Gartner said probably because he had gone to Rome to cover the Pope before the Pope's visit. So the one guy with a passport, he gets the ticket, gets on the plane, he shows up, he's on the caravan. They've got these white banners on handwritten, gifts of people of Iowa. And the trucks arrive there on Christmas Day. So when you walked outside and you picked up your Des Moines Register on your porch on December 25th, that's the headline you saw. I was talking to Rabbi Kaufman the other day about this, and I said, I don't think, Rabbi, that probably you have to be a Christian to feel that was an appropriate Christmas gift for these starving people. And so this was then what you saw, if you had photos from that camp of mothers, baby with milk, people with bags of food, now food to eat and medicine. And then right around New Year's, I got a phone call from a doctor named Bill Rosenfeld in Mason City. And he said, I want to go and help. So I called the American Refugee Committee and said, I've got a doctor who wants to go. He said, we've got a hospital in Khao Dang, and here is Bill Rosenfeld. We bought him a ticket, sent him there, and there he is, administering to patients. The descriptions he brought back, he was like the only doctor there for a month. He'd be handling 3 surgeries, 12 admissions, 12 other diagnoses, all at the same time. He said he saw more crisis medicine in 4 days than he had seen in all the rest of his medical experience. And he was the first of more than 10 Iowa doctors and nurses who called up, who volunteered, who went. Some stayed longer and that. But all of that money, we sent food and medicine inside Cambodia to school programs through UNICEF. Iowa Shares was doing things. We raised $550,000, all except for one $25,000 contribution from Pioneer. Everything else were small individual contributions. Somebody put a check or money in an envelope and mailed it to Box 1979, Des Moines 50309. That's how all the money came. And that's about close to $2 million in 2018, all from coupons, all from advocacy, all from journalism, TV, editors, program managers, religious leaders, political leaders, all coming together to do this. As the governor said, he wrote an incredible chapter in Iowa's Humanitarian legacy. So now, many of the people who were involved are no longer with us, but they're represented here today. And so I want to have now the opportunity to invite you to come to the stage so we can present to you directly for your role, or having you accept on behalf of the institutions and the individuals who made Iowa Shares happen. And so our Vice President, Mashal Hussain, will read your name, and please come forward.
I'd like to welcome to the stage Michael Gardner, then President and Editor of the Des Moines Register and Tribune.
You're coming up the wrong side, Michael, but you know, yes. Everybody else, please come this way. Come over here. That's it. So we got to turn her, yeah. So wouldn't have happened except for what he said and said, I'll put my newspaper behind it. This would not have happened except for that. Thank you. God bless you for all you did.
Correction.
Of course you may.
I would just like to elaborate on one thing about Governor Ray and Yepsen. Governor Ray was pretty cheap, and I'm sure the reason he gave the film was not because of Yepsen's persuasiveness, but because he knew the Register would process it at no fee for the government.
Nikki Schissel. Nikki was then member of Governor Ray's staff and co-director of Iowa Shares.
And that. So the first day after we launched it, the day before, can you hear me okay? Because I got a microphone on here, so I'm supposed to, people have been listening to my conversations all morning, I think. But the first day, on Monday, after the long Thanksgiving, Nikki went over to pick up the mail. And she came back, there were about 7 envelopes. And I was crestfallen. I thought, nobody cares. Nobody's, reading the Register, or what's wrong? So she went back the next day, and she called us and said, you have to send more people or a truck. There are so many letters here to carry back. And that, boxes and boxes and boxes. So, but this was, we were in the back of the governor's office, in the back room back there, and the two of us were friends, collaborators, and doing all this together is one of the great treasures of my life with Nikki. So, thank you.
Thank you, dear.
Yeah.
Representing the 3 religious leaders who met with Governor Ray to pledge their support in combating the Cambodian genocide, I'd like to invite to the stage together Bishop Richard Pates, who is accepting the award on behalf of Bishop Maurice Dingman of the Diocese of Des Moines, Rabbi David Kaufman, who's accepting the award on behalf of Rabbi Jay Goldberg from Temple B'nai Jeshurun, and Reverend Jonathan Whitfield, who's accepting the award on behalf of Reverend Frederick Strickland of the Corinthian Baptist Church.
I have to figure out how to do this. No. Okay. This is for you, Bishop. This is Rabbi, Reverend, and that. So the 3 individuals who you're here representing made that critical moment in the governor's office, made it happen, and coming together and pledging the support of their faiths at that time was absolutely essential part of all this. So God bless them for what they did, and we're so pleased that you're here to accept and represent them.
It's an honor to do so. Okay.
All right? Yes.
I'd like to welcome to the stage together Susan Ramsey, Director of Communications for Iowa Public Television, accepting the award on behalf of IPTV, and Miss Mary Jane Odell, the host of What You Need to Know About Cambodia, and Diane Graham, accepting the award on behalf of her husband, Dan Miller, Program Director at Iowa Public Television.
Yeah. And that's Diane. That's So, yes. Turn it around so we have a nice picture. So I didn't know Dan Miller then, but he became later one of my great friends. And in looking back, and I saw his inspiration in all of this. And Mary Jane Odell was a passionate part of Iowa Shares. She left IPTV shortly after that and just came down and was working for Iowa Shares and doing radio spots, and wherever she could go, she was so taken with this. So this year, very special recognition. Thank you. Tell Molly Phillips, of course, how pleased we are to be able to recognize and honor IPTV.
David Yepsen of the Des Moines Register.
You know, he was a tough guy, tough reporter, you know, and he wrote it like it is, and we all respected him for that. But it's really true. None of this would have happened except you asked that question, and it was an inspired moment. Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to invite to the stage together Jean Lesueur, accepting the award on behalf of the Davis Brown Law Firm and A. Arthur Davis, and Bev Evans, accepting the award on behalf of Bruce Campbell of the Davis Brown Law Firm.
Okay. This is yours. And oh, yeah. So, you know, Arthur Davis and Bruce Campbell was such a great part of what we did, both politically and legally. And having them there and being part of all this made an enormous difference and a great impression. And so glad to be able to honor them. Thank you.
Sheldon Rabinovitz, who was, as Ambassador Quinn mentioned, treasurer of the Iowa Shares campaign.
So Sheldon, you know, at first we thought, well, we need somebody to, you know, kind of do whatever legal things have to be done, tax purposes. But then when Nikki brought back these bags of money, and it's all, so I mean, come on, what a story it would be. You know, governor's office has piles of money, you know, from people who's accounting for it, who's taking care of it. What a scandal it would be. So Sheldon stepped in. He had got the bank, counting service. He'll open it, all going to be bonded and audited and everything. So you kept us all from going to jail, even for doing good work, Sheldon. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
I delegated most of the work.
He delegated most of the work, but not the responsibility.
Rick Moraine, then editor of the Jefferson Bee.
You know, the Moraines, they're pretty feisty lot, and but they're so thoughtful and engaged in so many different ways in Iowa history and journalism. And the Jefferson Bee was a frontline crusading paper, and maybe doesn't seem like this, but taking on this story and giving it the profile was a huge thing. When I talked to Rick, I said, "We're going to honor you for this." He said, "Oh, I don't remember. What did we do?" I said, "I remember what you did. I remember it as vividly as if it was yesterday because it was so impactful." Thank you, Rick, for what you did then, and so glad you could be here so we could recognize you.
Thank you very much, Ken.
Sister Carolyn Farrell, then mayor of Dubuque and regional advocate for Iowa Shares.
So Sister Carolyn, you know, the BVMs, they're a tough lot. They taught at St. Columkilles, where Tom Miller went to grade school and our home parish, and you know, and they were, you know, revolutionaries at the time. So Sister Carolyn was putting aside the habit and getting new habits of being politically influential, and she was just so incredible. And you here today, recognizing you, is to also recognize the many others in other communities who played the same kind of role. And she was saying, you know, I got the Telegraph Herald to run an editorial and a lot of other things. Thank you so much, and thanks for being here so we could recognize you.
And another Dubuquer.
Another Dubuquer. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Very good.
Yeah.
I'd like to welcome to the stage together Teresa Dunbar, accepting the award on behalf of Catholic Relief Services, and Jim DeHarport, Regional Director of Catholic Relief Services West, accepting the award on behalf of Monsignor Robert Charlebois.
So, Teresa, here's to Catholic Relief Services as an organization, and for Monsignor Charlebois. And so when you worked with Monsignor Charlebois, I never met him. And it bothers me to this day. He was just such an operator. He's like, I thought he must be from the Bronx or Baltimore or something. He was an operator, you know, get things done. And I thought, well, he's Catholic. He's probably not going to do anything too illegal and that. But, you know, he got that food and medicine to hungry, dying people. What greater thing could there be, even if it was some, and there was nothing illegal, I want to be clear, but he made it happen, and that's what all being part of Catholic Relief and other relief services, other faiths, is all about. So I'm so glad you could come. Yeah.
I'd like to invite to the stage together Dr. Yogesh Shah of Des Moines and Dr. James Smith of Aegis Trust in England, accepting the award on behalf of the late Dr. William Rosenfeld, who volunteered in the hospital at Kawi Dong refugee camp.
And that. So Dr. Rosenfeld doesn't have any relatives still living in Iowa. We didn't have anyone, and Dr. Shah and Dr. Smith very graciously agreed to accept and thereby recognize all of the doctors and medical personnel who are part of Iowa Shares. So thank you.
I'd like to invite Carol Hunter, Executive Editor of the Des Moines Register, accepting this recognition on behalf of the Des Moines Register and Tribune and the following individuals: Michael Gartner, David Yepsen, Gil Canberg, and William Simbro.
So I wanted to save this for last because having Carol here to represent the Des Moines Register and Tribune as an institution is so incredibly meaningful. It should always be part of the legacy of your great papers, of your institution, of what the paper did, because the Des Moines Register and the Tribune were at the forefront of this. This would not have been what it was, wouldn't have happened without the newspaper, and I hope it will be an ongoing inspiration to all of you still there, still making a great paper, and for what you're doing, because coming together, the role that was played in bringing food and medicine and help to dying people. I mean, what greater thing, as Governor Ray said, hearing his voice, could there be? So thank you for being here. Thank you. I'm so pleased to honor the Register. This.
And now, he thinks that it's over. We have a very special surprise recognition, and I'm going to ask Nikki to come and make that announcement.
A few weeks before Governor Ray passed away, Scott Riker, who is the executive director of the Robert D. Ray and Billy Ray Center at Drake University, visited with the governor about the 2018 Iowa Shares Award winners. After he finished going over the list, he said, well, Ken Quinn should get an award. He was essential to the effort. Well, I worked for Governor Ray, and I'm sorry, I'm never going to ignore what may have been one of his last wishes. And he was so right. I can attest to the role that Ken Quinn played in making Iowa Shares so successful. Governor Ray was the moral leader and provided the leadership for sending the aid to refugees, but Ken was instrumental in executing that plan. From coming up with the acronym to making sure every penny of every donation went for medicine and for food. From making phone calls all through the night internationally to coordinating events and efforts throughout the state. Ken was extraordinary. Winston Churchill once said, to each, there comes in their lifetime a special moment when they are figuratively tapped on the shoulder and given a chance to do something extraordinary. Well, it would be a tragedy if for some reason they were unqualified or unprepared for that which could be their finest hour. Well, I assure you, Ken Quinn was uniquely qualified, perfectly prepared, and it was one of his finest hours. The last 2018 Robert D. Ray Iowa Shares Humanitarian Award goes to Kenneth M. Quinn, President of the World Food Prize.
Oh. Yeah. Wow. Oh my God. I'm crying from both eyes. No.
Okay.
You know,
Good job.
it's not, you're not supposed to make the president cry, Nikki. Well, thank you. I could not be more touched than to have had that gesture from Governor Ray. Madeline, I think I can't find words to say anything else, but God bless all of you who made Iowa Shares a great chapter in our state's humanitarian heritage. It's an incredible honor for me to be involved with you personally and with your institutions. And I'm so incredibly proud to be an Iowan, and this is one of the reasons why, because our state and our people have a big heart when it comes to alleviating human suffering.
Well, that concludes our luncheon. I just wanted to make a couple of announcements before we headed out. Following the end of the Hunger Summit luncheon, we will begin 2 rounds of breakout sessions here on the 3rd floor in the Hall of Cities just behind us. They include the Community Engagement Collaboration, which is the Crisis Center Mobile Food Pantry, and that will take place in Council Bluffs. The Malnutrition and Violence in Cedar Rapids. We'll have integrating partners through grassroots cooperation and community and private partners addressing local food insecurity in the Davenport Room. The grassroots-based food assistance in Dubuque, and finally the collaboration for capacity building and nonprofit entrepreneurship in Waterloo. And then we'll have another session at 2:30. On your tables, you'll find descriptions of all of your breakout sessions, and then don't forget to come back down to the 2nd floor at 3:25 for our closing session on the 2018 Alice Report. Thank you again for coming.